Hey there, it's Cynthia with the Daily Dinner Fix, where I answer the question of what's for dinner. Today I'm going to be making two Szechwan classics. I'm going to be making green beans with a chili sauce and also ants on a tree. Though there are no ants or trees that go into the making of that dish. It actually gets its name because it's noodles with ground pork, and the pork on the noodles looks like little ants crawling on a tree. It's actually a really yummy dish, really easy to put together. Let me show you how to make them. So first thing I've done is I already have an oven here that's been preheating at 200 degrees. Now we're not going to be making anything in the oven, but we're going to be making our green beans first, and I want to keep those warm while I make the noodle dish, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a large skillet heating over high heat. Now, if you have a wok, by all means, bust it out. This is the time to use it. For this, we would traditionally use a Chinese long bean. However, I couldn't find Chinese long beans locally. You can sub just regular green beans. As you can see, I've trimmed most, but two of these. I was going to demo these for you. I've trimmed most of these and then just cut them into 2-inch lengths. So we pretty much just cut these little tops off where the bean was hanging on the vine, and then a 2-inch length is probably about half. So I've got a half pound of the beans here. To this skillet, we're going to add a tablespoon of canola oil. You can also use a vegetable oil if you don't have canola oil, and we want this to be really hot, almost smoking. And then what we're going to do is we're going to saute these green beans in the skillet for about 6 to 8 minutes until they're tender. Now, while I wait for the skillet to finish warming up, let's make our sauce. So I have here some dry sherry. I have some soy sauce. And then I have some hoisin sauce. Now, if you're not familiar with hoisin sauce is a sauce that's used traditionally in Chinese cooking. It's actually used quite a bit. It's used as like a glaze for meat, as like a dip for meat. And fun fact, hoisin, I learned, actually means seafood in Chinese. Not because there's any seafood that actually goes into the making of it, but because it's used so much with seafood. That they just called it seafood. So we're just gonna, and to that I added a little bit of sugar. So we're just gonna mix that up. This is gonna be the sauce for our green beans, and we're gonna set that aside. Now, this is pretty hot. I can actually like smell the oil. It's about to start smoking. So it's time to add our green beans in. So you're just gonna toss those in, and I'm gonna set a timer for 6 minutes. And we're just going to give that a toss. If you're not comfortable tossing green beans, by all means just use some tongs here. And what we're going to do is we're going to finish, while that's kind of sauteing and cooking, we're going to finish assembling the rest of our ingredients. So I'm going to need, for this recipe, some garlic. Whoa. I need about a half tablespoon of minced garlic. Now you notice we didn't add any seasoning to those green beans, and that's simply because the hoisin, the soy sauce, the other ingredients that we're adding to this contain quite a bit of salt in them already. So it's really not necessary to add any salt to the green beans at this point, because they're going to get it from the sauce. All right, so I'm just going to push this off to the side. I don't need it quite yet, but I'll leave it there for when I do need it. Next, what we're going to do is we need half a tablespoon of ginger. This is what ginger looks like here. If you've never worked with it, it is a root. Of course, you want to peel ginger. There are a couple of tricks to peeling ginger. You can just use a knife. You can also use a spoon. As you can see, I'm kind of just scraping the papery skin off. I'm not a huge fan of the spoon technique. I mean, I find that it kind of takes a little longer than if I were to just take, say, like a chef's knife and kind of scrape off the sides. So it can be a little tedious to work with ginger, but we're just going to shave the paper, the skin off. And then we're going to grate this. So I'm just going to take a microplane and I'm going to go to town with this piece of ginger. Actually, let me do this over here. All right, looks pretty good. All right, there goes our timer. So to those green beans, I've taken them off the heat. I'm gonna add our ginger. I'm gonna add our garlic. And then I'm gonna add 3 scallions that I need to really quickly slice up. Grating the ginger took up so much time. I didn't have time to slice these onions. If you're making this at home, my recommendation would be to grate that ginger in advance, just because it is a little time consuming, but I did want to demo it for you guys, which is why I opted not to do it ahead of time. But yeah, just do it in advance at home. All right, so we've added 3 green onions, or garlic, or ginger, and we're just gonna return this to the heat and let this cook for about 30 seconds until it's nice and fragrant. All right, so now we're gonna add that sauce. Oh, this smells so good. And we're gonna cook this for like another minute or 2. As you can see, I'm just tossing this constantly. I don't want anything to burn in here. There is garlic in here. If you let garlic sit too long in the pan, it will start to burn, and then it gets this like bitter taste, which is not good. Nobody wants that. All right. So it's been about a minute. We're going to turn that heat off. We're gonna take our green beans. I'm just gonna put them in a casserole dish. Oh man, it smells so good. It's so fragrant. You smell the ginger, the garlic that's sauteing, those scallions. There's a timer. So we're just gonna put this in our 200-degree oven, and this is just gonna keep this warm. So these aren't gonna keep cooking in here. We just want them to stay nice and toasty while we assemble our noodles. So before we can cook our noodles, first thing we want to do is marinate our pork. So I have here a ½ pound of pork, to which I'm going to add 2 cloves of garlic that I minced earlier. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. And sesame oil is another one of those ingredients you see a lot in Chinese cooking. It's a pretty flavorful ingredient. It lends a lot of flavor. All right, and then we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And again, we're not adding any salt to this like we didn't for those green beans, because there's salt already in that soy sauce. And then I'm just going to give this a mix. So we're going to set this aside for 10 minutes. And meanwhile, we're going to get started on our noodles. And for our noodles, we're going to need a couple of things. So I have here some mung bean noodles. As you can see, they kind of come in these little like rectangles. This is what we're going to be using. They're sometimes advertised as bean noodles. You can find them in like the Asian food aisle of your local grocer. And the way we're going to prepare these, at least initially, is we're going to soak these in some hot water. So I'm just going to move over to the tap, cover these with hot water, and then these are going to sit for 10 minutes. So they'll be marinating at the same time that our pork's marinating. All right, so there we are. And actually, another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh this down just with like a bowl that I have here, just to ensure that the noodles stay submerged. And I know I said these are gonna soak for 10 minutes. It actually takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. You just want them to be nice and soft. So we'll check them after a few minutes. But for now, let's just set this aside along with our pork. And let's talk about the other ingredients that we're gonna be needing for this. So I have here some more soy sauce. You're picking up on a theme here. Some soy sauce. We have some minced ginger. We have some minced garlic, and we have some chili paste. Now for the chili paste, I'm using sriracha because it's what I have on hand. You know, there are a variety of chili pastes that you can find like in the Asian aisle of the grocery store, at your Asian markets. I'm using sriracha just because it's, again, something I always have on hand. I like the flavor. So I'll be using some of that. And then we're going to need some scallions. So I'm going to go ahead and give these a chop. And we're only going to be needing the white and the light green parts. There we go. All right, and let's just move that aside. And then we're also going to be using a jalapeno here. Szechwan cooking is known for having a little bit of spice, or packing a little bit of spice. Now this recipe is adapted from a recipe that I've had for years. The original recipe called for a Fresno chili, which is a red chili, about in the same level of heat that a jalapeno packs. Fresno chilies can just be a little hard to find, so I just use a jalapeno because it's easy to find, and I don't have to go to like another you know, store just to find it out, or to find it. Now, if you don't like spicy, I would recommend that you devein and also remove the seeds from the jalapeno. I'm not going to be doing that because, like, if I'm not crying and my nose isn't running, I'm not going to enjoy this dish. And like, I find that jalapenos are really hit and miss. Sometimes they're super spicy, sometimes they're not spicy at all. So I'm just going to keep the seeds. This one smells like it's got a little bit of heat in it. So I'm hoping that it does. And I'm just mincing that up. And I'm gonna set that aside. Okay, as you can see, I've assembled our ingredients. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of those dishes that's gonna come together really quickly, so you wanna make sure you have kind of everything handy that you're going to need, so that it can just all go into the pan and cook quickly, and you don't burn anything. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bring the skillet up to heat over a medium-high heat. And while we wait for that to warm up, I'm gonna check on these noodles, which look done at this point. So again, what we're looking for is for the noodles to be soft, which they are. They're nice and pliable. So I'm just gonna take these noodles and I'm gonna drain them in a colander over the sink. All right, so we have our noodles. And what we wanna do is we actually wanna just cut these into 2-inch pieces. As you can see, they're a little long. This is one of those tasks for kitchen shears. If you don't have kitchen shears, you can certainly just do this on a cutting board and a knife, although it is, you know, kind of convenient to just be able to grab like strands of these and cut them. So I'm keeping an eye on my skillet, and what I'm waiting for on that skillet is for it to become so hot that it actually starts smoking. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it on camera, but I'm sure at one point or another you've all had a skillet that is smoking, either because you kind of just forgot about it, you know, while you were preheating it, and it just kind of sat there and it started to smoke. But anytime you're cooking like a wok, I know this isn't a wok, but like a dish that's woked, you know, you want to do it at a really high heat. All right. Just about done chopping our noodles here. My tummy is grumbling, and I keep smelling those green beans from earlier, along with, you know, everything else I've got here on the cutting board or on the counter, and I cannot wait to eat. That looks good. Still some long pieces here, but that's okay. We got most of them chopped. All right, so our skillet seems pretty hot. Yeah, that's really hot. Sizzling. So to that, we're gonna add a little bit of canola oil. We're just gonna give that a swirl to coat as best we can. All right, and to this, we're going to add a couple of things. We're gonna add those chilies, or that chili that we chopped earlier. We're gonna add those scallions, and we gotta do this quickly because this is only gonna cook for 30 seconds. The ginger and the minced garlic. And you're just gonna stir that continuously for about 30 seconds. We're looking for it to be nice and fragrant, and you want to keep stirring this because you don't want that garlic to burn. I'm actually going to grab a spatula here because I'm going to need it in a second. Oh man, that smells good. The ginger, the onions, the garlic. It's just like all of this flavor in your face. All right, so it's been about 30 seconds. Let's add our pork. That's been marinating. All right, and we're gonna cook this. I set a timer here for 4 minutes. We're gonna cook this just until it's cooked through. It's gonna take about 4 to 5 minutes. And again, I'm just stirring constantly because I don't want any of those onions, the ginger, the garlic. I don't want any of that to burn. All right, there goes our 4-minute timer. As you can see, our meat has browned nicely. Those onions have started to wilt. It smells amazing in here. So we're kind of gonna finish assembling this. We're gonna add some more soy sauce. We're gonna add some of that chili sauce, the sriracha that I was talking about earlier. We're just gonna stir this to incorporate. And then to this, we're going to add those noodles from earlier. And we're going to add some water. And this water is just gonna kind of help loosen up the sauce and help everything incorporate. And at this point, I'm gonna employ the use of some tongs because that's just gonna make this task easier. And we're just gonna toss the pork with the noodles, incorporating the noodles into the sauce and the meat. And as you can see, it's starting to look like little ants crawling on a tree. All right, and we're just gonna cook this until most of the liquid has been absorbed by the noodles, which is about now. So turning that off. All right. Yum, yum, yum. All right, let's plate this. So I'm gonna turn off our oven on those beans and let's pull those out. And let's take a look at those. Yum, yum, yum. That's good. Oh, that's really good. I just couldn't help myself. All right, so to plate, we're gonna take some of these noodles. Just make a little mound there. Take some of our green beans and let's taste. Well, I already cheated. I already tasted the green beans, but let's try these noodles. It's so good. This is so good, and this was done in what, like 20 minutes? Took like 15 minutes to cook. You can't get takeout this fast. And it's so delicious. I'll tell you what, my husband better get home quick, otherwise there's not going to be any of this left for him. Really encourage you to make this at home. Simple to make, delicious, flavorful meal that you can make on any weeknight. Until next time, enjoy.